It's my great delight today to be with Simon Edwards, who is the author of the Hillbagging website. So, hiya Simon, it's lovely to meet you.
Yep.
How's things? You okay?
All right, thanks. Yeah, having a great day.
Well, today, Simon, what we're going to concentrate on is the Hillbagging website. But before we get into the detail of that, what may be quite nice is just to lay a little bit of background about
All right.
your association with the Hills, but also IT as well, because it sort of combines the two of those. So,
Yep.
as far as the Hills are concerned, what are your first memories of them?
Well, I remember the first hill I walked at was probably in my late teens with a couple of mates. We went up Skiddaw in the Lake District, walked all the way up from right from Keswick where we were staying. So we did the whole 3,000 foot of it, and I think that was probably didn't do anything else until the next year. I did Snowdon, all the sort of honeypot ones, then Helvellyn. I didn't know anything about hill bagging lists or anything at the time. It was just sort of walking up the highest thing nearby, you know. I always wanted to get to the highest thing.
When was that, Simon?
I guess that would have been the mid-80s when I was first doing that. I was actually born and brought up in Yorkshire, but you know, I didn't have a car. I never used to go to the Yorkshire Dales or anything. Didn't really know anything about the hilltops. I wouldn't have even thought of the tops. It'd just been the villages, and if I went anywhere with mum and dad, it was to honeypots like Bolton Abbey and for day trips.
So after your sort of first encounters with the hills, the big hills as well for England, Wales, Skiddaw and Helvellyn and Snowdon, what about things like hill lists? When, after those ascents, did you first start encountering hill lists?
I think this must have been in the mid-90s. A colleague at work was doing one of these hill lists. He was doing a list called the Bridges, which is a book by, I can't remember, is it George Bridge? It was written in the 70s. It was all the 2,000 footers in England and Wales. I don't think it was a particularly well researched list. It was based on 1-inch mapping or something like that. But I tried to get myself a copy and couldn't find one anywhere. I think it was out of print. And I found the Nuttall's books. And really, that's what got me into them, the Nuttall's books, and reading their routes up them. They were just fascinating, and it seemed to be much better researched and up to date. I thought, I'll go for those. And I was happy to find I'd already done probably about 20 of them without knowing it. But I'll continue. I thought it was a big, long list, and I probably would never get them all done, so I'd concentrate on getting the highest 100 of them.
Now, so having encountered the Nuttall's listing, when did your sort of aptitude and your enjoyment of IT start?
Right, I'd already been working in IT for a number of years. I went to university at Bradford and got a maths degree. Not really much to do with IT, but I went straight into an IT job from university. And I guess nothing really to do with websites, though. It's all kind of the old-fashioned COBOL programming on mainframes and that kind of thing, and gradually developing onto PC work. But I guess I first started putting the hill bagging and IT together when I started using spreadsheets to log my ascents, and then I started using a drawing package to position where the hills were on a background map. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice if I made those triangles and I had them red if I hadn't done them and green if I had done them. And that was just using a drawing package against the sort of a scale map that I'd drawn. But that idea kind of thought I could actually do that on a website. It'd be good fun to try and see if I could do a website and translate that onto there. And just with my own ascent, hadn't got any kind of thought of making this a kind of a publicly used website that people could do stuff with.
And what year would that be, Simon?
I think probably was very late 90s, 1999 or something like that. And I called it the Mountains of England and Wales. That was an interesting thing. Yeah, I thought, if I'm going to put all these Nuttall's hills on there, I'm going to have to ask someone permission. So I found the Nuttall's website and emailed them, and when I got a response I thought, oh, this is these people I've been climbing their hills for ages. I've actually had a conversation with them by email now, and it's sort of, I thought that was great, and they gave me permission to add them to my website. I think it's sort of publicity for their books, as long as I put sort of links back to their website and mention their books. So now I could display my ascents to everybody who was interested. But another thing I thought was, because I had acquired a GPS receiver, I couldn't really find any websites that had the detailed grid references of the tops. Everything was just 6-figure, and if I was finding I needed better detail than that. So I thought I'd try and incorporate that into the website as well. And I spent hours and hours poring over maps using magnifying glasses, or actually, if I could get an online version, blowing it up and then sort of measuring on the map, the exact grid reference of a spot height or something like that. I think I realise now that that's probably not an accurate way of going about things, because the spot height might not be at the summit, or it might not be precisely placed on the map. But I found it actually was good enough for use with a GPS and got me to the summit quite a lot.
Now, of course, when the website started, you mentioned the red and the green triangles, and that's something that you still use today.
It is, yes.
But also, something that I immediately notice whenever I go onto hill bagging is that lovely little icon of the sheep.
Right, yes.
Did that originate when you first started the website off?
It was, yeah, right from the start. It was just a drawing of a sheep my daughter had done. I think she'd done it for a Christmas card, actually. So it's supposed to be a lamb outside a stable, I think, but I just took the sheep itself and used that as my logo ever since.
I think it's a great little touch. So now we're on to hill bagging, and you mentioned it sort of started off as a spreadsheet and concentrating on John and Anne Nuttall's list into the English and Welsh mountains. How soon after that, Simon, did you then start contemplating putting other lists on?
I guess, I don't know, I think probably the next thing I added was county tops, because I was interested in doing those. And I'd got photocopies of George Bridges' list by this time, and he'd listed the county tops as well. So I added those. And then I think I became aware of the Marilyn list, because I found the RHB user group online. I thought that would be a good one to add. Although I wasn't really contemplating doing them myself. I thought, I might be able to do the English and Welsh ones. I think then it's probably when I came across the database of British Hills and thought, these guys have got accurate grid references of all these hills. I wonder if I can use their data. So I wrote to them and got permission to use their data on my website. So now I was adding the Scottish lists as well. I thought, why not add everything that's on their database? Because it was all extendable, because I'd written a website with a database behind it, so it's just a matter of adding the hills to the database.
So again, when would that be now, year-wise?
I think 2006 or something like that. Yeah, I guess it was around about that time. I'm sort of thinking, I had a look when I knew you were going to interview me, to see when the earliest emails I had with Graham and Chris. I think it was around about that time.
And as far as your IT skills are concerned, Simon, by creating the website and running it, do you sort of learn along the way?
I've learned everything along the way. Everything I know about websites. It started off with just a bit of basic HTML and CSS, then I learned JavaScript, so I could use that to position the hills on the maps dynamically, and then I discovered using a database behind it and using PHP programming language. I've none of this I'd used in my job, so I had to learn it all from sort of buying books.
So from first encountering the database and asking whether you could use their 10-figure grid references, around 2006, 2007, what's the next sort of stage with the evolution of hill bagging after that?
I guess that would have been maybe a year or two later. Graham contacted me and asked me if I wanted to be one of the editors of the database of British Hills. I think and they were very keen on the the fact that I was using their data, but probably had some of my own data on there as well. It'd be a good idea if we unified it, and we were all sort of like singing from the same hymn sheet, if you like. And I think they probably thought the best way of doing that is getting me on board. I'd probably contact them quite a number of times saying, isn't this in the list, or isn't that one in the list, or what do you think of that? And every time they brought out a new version, I immediately got my website up to date with them. So they thought, oh, this guy's obviously keen on the database, so let's invite him to join in.
Now, even after sort of joining as an editor of it was DOBH then, wasn't
we
it?
hadn't got the Irish Hills in at the time. Yeah.
But it's sort of progressed since then, isn't it? Even over the last year or so, is it now sort of fully compatible as the web version of the database?
Yes, I kind of relaunched it as the online version of the database, and I'm actually responsible for keeping the data up to date. So whenever there's a change to the database, all the editors kind of discuss it and agree it, but I apply the change to the database, and I apply it to hill bagging and to the database at the same time, keep them in synchronisation.
Well, next couple of questions, sort of a rundown of some of the listings that are on hill bagging, but also some of the things on hill bagging that are very user friendly for the public to go in to access. So first of all, sort of listings. What kind of listings have you currently got there?
I think all the popular lists are on there in Scotland and England, Wales and Ireland. It's about I guess so the Wainwrights and the Burkitts in the Lake District, all the sort of prominence lists like the Marilyns and the Humps. On hill bagging, all the Tumps are there as well. All the 30-metre prominences right down to 30 metres. I think the plans afoot to add those to the database of British and Irish hills as well. In fact, for the last release, we did a separate release of the Tumps appendix. That's some 10,000 extra hills onto the database, and some of those are going to be minor bumps in people's back gardens.
So in all, would it be sort of 16, 17 odd thousand hills that you've got?
That's about right.
And that's a phenomenal amount, isn't it? Just
it is
incredible.
If anyone wanted to climb them all.
You could have a word with Rob Woodall or Ken White.
I think we try and keep the database and hill bagging friendly enough so you can select the list you're interested in and cut out the rest if you're not interested.
And what about the user-friendly elements of it, Simon? Because there's many things there that the public can go in and they can either log or use.
Yes, you can log your ascents on there, and you can see the green and your own personalised green and red triangles for the lists you're doing. And whenever you log an ascent, you can put a little description of maybe where you started from and and what the description of the summit was, so you could help other people to find the summit. There's also sort of league tables in there as well, so you can see your progress relative to other people who are using the site. And quite a lot of these things were sort of ideas that people wrote. My visitors to my website said, wouldn't it be a good idea if you did this? So I'm very grateful to people for that. So the extra bits and pieces are probably as a result of someone writing to me and saying, wouldn't it be great if you did that?
Well, I think it's an absolutely tremendous resource, Simon. That's obviously coupled with the with DOBH, and I think on behalf of hill walkers and also hill baggers, many thanks for creating and sort of running the website. It really is very, very good. What about its future? Where can you sort of see it in the next year to say 3-5 years time?
Ooh, right, interesting. I guess ideas from people, whatever comes in, anything that sort of sounds interesting, I'll probably add it. There'll be other hill lists to add to it in conjunction with adding them to the database. I guess I could make it much more mobile friendly as well, as these mobile devices get better and better for use actually in the hills. As at some point people are going to be able to have a good enough battery on their mobile to use that as their GPS unit. And and so my website site needs to be more friendly for that, I guess. Yeah, that's that sort of thing.
So, just before we close, any sort of last comments concerning hill bagging?
It's been great fun to do. It's been a labour of love, really, and it's been fabulous for getting contact from people and people writing in, and I really love the comments people have sent in and the ideas they've had, and it's just been a really good project to be involved in.
Well, Simon Edwards, been great meeting you today, and also hearing about hill bagging. Fantastic resource for the hill walk and the hill bagger. So, Simon Edwards, many thanks.
Thanks, Myrddyn. Thank you.